Brothers and sisters, open your eyes and listen closely. Stay with me until the end, because you have a right to hear the truth. Today, I will speak about something the so-called free world would rather keep hidden. They lecture us about justice, transparency, accountability, and democracy. They point their fingers at Africa, calling us corrupt, calling us backward, insisting we must learn from them, but peel back the mask of their own system. Look behind the curtains of the United States Supreme Court, and you will see rot so deep it reeks to the heavens. I am speaking about Justice Clarence Thomas and the billionaire who bankrolls him, Harlon Crowe. Yes, I will speak without fear, because the truth must be told. These men sit in high places, making decisions that shape nations. They pretend to stand above politics, above money, above temptation. But what are they really? Servants of wealth, agents of the elite, guardians of a system built not for the people, but for billionaires and their friends. Let us begin with the scandal of gifts. Imagine, my brothers and sisters, a judge entrusted with the sacred duty of protecting the Constitution, a man whose very position demands integrity beyond reproach. Yet what do we see? Clarence Thomas, sitting on the highest bench in America, drowning in luxuries ordinary citizens could never even dream of. This is not rumor. This is not gossip. These are facts, documented, undeniable, shameful, private jet flights. Not once, not twice, not a handful of times, again and again, as though the skies themselves were his personal playground. Simply because he wears a black robe, each journey costing tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, yet he pays nothing. Who foots the bill? His billionaire friend, Harlon Crowe. But ask yourselves this: when a man becomes so accustomed to stepping into private jets at the snap of a finger, does he still remember the struggles of citizens who cannot even afford a bus ticket? When his eyes are dazzled by gold, plated cabins, and crystal glasses, can he still see the single mother counting coins to feed her children? Tell me, my friends, can such a man call himself impartial? And then, the yachts, vast floating palaces, drifting across oceans with chefs, servants, and luxuries beyond imagination. Clarence Thomas did not just admire them in glossy magazines. He lived on them. He feasted on them. He sailed across seas where his only duty was indulgence, while his billionaire patron smiled, knowing he had his judge exactly where he wanted him, comfortable, indebted, grateful. These yachts burn more fuel in a single week than an African village might spend in an entire year. And yet this so-called guardian of justice lounged on them like a child in a candy store, never once asking if the people deserved to know who was buying his silence. And it did not end there. Exotic retreats, secret holidays, resorts hidden in corners of the world ordinary people will never see. Places where the elite gather, far beyond public eyes. There, Clarence Thomas dined with billionaires, drank wine worth more than a farmer's annual income, and soaked in luxuries paid for in secrecy. All unreported, all conveniently omitted from the disclosures he was legally required to file. Do you see now, my brothers and sisters, how corruption dresses itself in fine suits? How bribery disguises itself as hospitality? And yet, they tell us this man represents justice. They bow before his robe. They call him honorable. They preach to us that he is the guardian of law, the protector of the weak. But what justice is this, where the judge is a permanent guest at the banquet of billionaires? What integrity is this, when loyalty is bought not by truth, but by luxury? Do you not feel the insult? They expect us to believe that a man who dines at the tables of the rich can still speak for the poor. That is not just hypocrisy. It is mockery. It spits in the face of every ordinary citizen. If his vacations are paid for by men who own empires, how can he defend the tenant whose roof is collapsing? If his flights are gifted by billionaires, will he ever hear the cries of the worker who cannot even afford a bicycle? If his life has been softened and gilded by the elite, how can he ever know the pain of the people? The truth is simply he does not see them. He does not hear them. And he will not fight for them. This man lives in a world of private jets and champagne glasses, of whispered deals and hidden favors. But justice, my brothers and sisters, justice was never meant to live in palaces. Justice is meant to walk among the people, to stand in the markets, sit in humble homes, and hear the cries of the oppressed. But tell me, how can Clarence Thomas claim to deliver justice when he does not even live in the same world as those he judges? His reality is not our reality. His struggles are not our struggles. He floats above the ground, untouchable, wrapped in the clouds of billionaire luxury, while the masses suffer below. And yet such a man dares to tell us what is fair. Such a man dares to decide the fate of millions. But look closely, when justice is bought with champagne, it becomes poison. When integrity is tied to yachts and luxury resorts, it ceases to exist. A judge who lives at the mercy of billionaires is no judge at all. He is a servant, a loyal dog in a robe, barking only when his master commands. That is the tragedy of Clarence Thomas. That is the shame of America's highest court. They say justice is blind. But is it truly blind? When it sees only the hand that pours the wine? Is it blind when it ignores the suffering of the poor, but gazes with gratitude at the gifts of the rich? No, my friends, this is not blindness. This is deliberate sight fixed only on wealth and power, and such justice is not justice at all. It is injustice in disguise. So hear me when I say justice bought with champagne is no justice. It is betrayal. It is robbery. It is a crime against the people. Every ruling he delivers bears the fingerprints of his benefactors. Each decision is tainted, corrupted, unworthy of respect. And this was no accident, no one-time lapse. It was a pattern. Year after year, decade after decade, Clarence Thomas lived this life of luxury, his silence bought with gifts. And in return, what did he give? Loyalty. Not to the people, not to the law, but to the billionaire class. He became their man on the inside, their voice on the bench, their shield against accountability. So let us tear away the mask. This is not friendship. This is not generosity. This is the purchase of influence disguised as kindness. This is bribery with fine wine instead of dirty cash. This is corruption wrapped in perfume, corruption sailing on yachts, corruption flying first class. And no matter how sweetly it is dressed, my brothers and sisters, corruption cannot hide its stench. And it does not stop there. Harlon Crowe, the billionaire who feeds Clarence Thomas, did not merely shower him with gifts. He went further. He bought real estate directly from him, even purchasing the home where Thomas's own mother still lives. And what did this so-called defender of law do? He hid it. He failed to disclose it. He covered it up. Imagine the audacity, a Supreme Court justice sitting on the highest bench in the land, engaged in secret property deals with his billionaire patron. If this had happened in Africa, they would send delegations. They would impose sanctions. The Western media would shout from every headline, "Corruption in Africa's courts." But when it happens in America, they look away. But because it is America, they whisper, they downplay, they look the other way. And still, more revelations come. Did you know that Harlon Crowe even paid the tuition for Clarence Thomas's grandnephew? Yes, school fees, quietly covered by a billionaire's wallet. Brothers and sisters, ask yourselves who in this world pays another man's child's tuition, if not to buy loyalty, if not to secure influence. They call it friendship. I call it bribery dressed up as generosity. They call it hospitality. I call it corruption in a tuxedo. And when questioned, Clarence Thomas has the audacity to shrug and say, "Oh, Harlon Crowe is just a dear friend. A dear friend who spends millions to keep him comfortable. A dear friend who buys him luxury vacations. A dear friend who purchases his mother's house. A dear friend who pays for his family's education." Tell me, is that friendship or is that ownership? Because when a man feeds you, houses you, and educates your children, you no longer belong to yourself. You belong to him. Clarence Thomas no longer belongs to the people. He no longer belongs to the Constitution. He no longer belongs to justice. He belongs to Harlon Crowe and to the billionaire class he serves. And what does this mean for the ordinary citizen? It means that when the court rules on workers' rights, on voting rights, on corporate power, Clarence Thomas is not thinking of the people. He is thinking of his benefactors. He is thinking of the men who fly him across the seas in private jets. He is thinking of the billionaires who have turned his life into one long vacation. And yet, this is the man who sits in judgment of others. This is the man who dares to lecture the world about ethics, who rules on cases that shape the lives of millions. What hypocrisy! What mockery of justice! They expect us to believe this is normal. They expect us to swallow the lie that it is nothing more than friendship. But ask yourselves, why does this friendship always flow in one direction? Why is it always the billionaire giving and the judge receiving? Why are these gifts never declared openly, but instead uncovered only when journalists drag them from the shadows? And why is it that ordinary citizens cannot buy such access, cannot afford such luxury, cannot whisper in the ears of judges the way billionaires do? The answer is simple: the system was never built for the people. It was built for the elite, for the wealthy few who treat judges like their private servants. Brothers and sisters, corruption does not always come in the form of briefcases stuffed with cash. Sometimes it comes as first-class flights. Sometimes it comes as yacht trips to exotic islands. Sometimes it comes as luxury homes passed quietly under the table. Corruption wears many clothes. And let us not forget, when such scandals erupt in Africa, the world points at us. They brand us thieves. They shame us on their television screens. They pressure our leaders. But when it happens in America, when their judges are caught in the act, they protect them with silence. Do not be deceived. This is no isolated scandal. This is the very character of their so-called justice system. It does not protect the people. It protects the elite. Clarence Thomas is not an exception. He is the face of a system that rewards loyalty to billionaires, not loyalty to truth. Ask yourself, when the court shields corporations, when it weakens labor unions, when it undermines the voting rights of the poor and minorities, who benefits? Not the people, not the weak, not the oppressed. Always it is the same group, the billionaires and their agents. And yet, they expect us to bow before these men, as if they are untouchable. But I say this, no man who eats from the hands of the rich should ever claim to serve justice. Clarence Thomas has been bought and paid for. And if America had the courage to face itself in the mirror, it would admit that its Supreme Court has been compromised. But courage is something America lacks when it comes to judging itself. It finds courage only when judging others, when pointing fingers at Africa, when lecturing us on democracy, when telling us how to govern our nations. So I say to America, clean your own house before you tell us how to arrange ours. You parade across the world as masters of morality, as guardians of justice, as the shining light of democracy. But the truth, my friends, is far darker. But tell me, how bright can your light be when it is fueled by corruption? How can you preach governance to us when your own highest court is drowning in scandal? You have judges living as permanent guests of billionaires, yet you point at Africa and call us corrupt. You have justice itself bought and sold like goods in a marketplace, yet you parade as guardians of democracy. This is not guardianship. This is robbery in robes. You have men like Clarence Thomas, men who should embody integrity, reduced to loyal servants of one rich man, men who wear the title of justice, but behave like butlers, waiting for the next yacht, the next private jet, the next handout from their master. And still, you dare to come to our lands, wagging your fingers, telling us to learn from you. Learn what? Learn how to sell our souls to billionaires. Learn how to turn justice into an auction where the highest bidder wins. And you dare to stand on podiums, sending delegations, scolding us about corruption, about weak courts, about unstable nations. Who gave you that right? When your own courts kneel at the throne of money, how can the corrupt instruct the clean? How can the compromised dictate to the uncompromised? This is hypocrisy of the highest order, and I will not remain silent before such arrogance. You call yourselves defenders of democracy, yet your democracy is for sale. You call yourselves champions of justice, yet your justice is leased to billionaires. You call yourselves teachers of governance, yet your governance is a circus, where the clowns wear robes, and the ringmasters are men of unimaginable wealth. And you think the world does not see. You think people do not notice. No, America, the mask has fallen. The world is watching. Africa is watching, and we are not blind. So before you send your experts to lecture us, before you write your reports on corruption in Africa, before you impose sanctions on our leaders, look to your own court. Look to Clarence Thomas. Look to the billionaires who own your system. Look at the shame you try to bury. Clean your own house before you dare to knock on ours, because we will no longer listen to hypocrites who cannot practice what they preach. And understand this scandal is not just about one judge. It is about an empire of hypocrisy. It is about a system where the rich control every branch of power. It is about a nation that polishes its corruption with fine words. It is about a Supreme Court that wears black robes, but whose hands are stained with the fingerprints of billionaires. My brothers and sisters, I speak today because the world must see the double standard. They pretend to be holy while they are rotten. They pretend to be clean while caked in filth. They pretend to be just, yet they bow before wealth. Clarence Thomas is not merely a corrupt judge. He is the symbol of a corrupt system that has enslaved justice to the will of the elite. So let me ask you, can a man who accepts yachts and jets ever deliver justice to the poor? Can a man whose family is housed and schooled by billionaires ever rule against the interests of the billionaire class? Can a man who hides gifts and conceals deals ever be trusted with the truth? The answer is no. 1,000 times no. And if America refuses to admit it, then it is our duty to shout it until the walls of their hypocrisy crack. Because this is not just about one man. It is about an empire. They claim to be a model for the world, but their model is rotten. They claim to stand for freedom, but their freedom is auctioned in the courts of billionaires. They claim to defend democracy, but what democracy exists when judges serve billionaires instead of the people? That is why I speak, because silence is complicity. If we stay silent, they will go on deceiving. If we stay silent, they will sit on thrones of corruption while pointing their fingers at us. If we stay silent, the people will go on suffering under the illusion that justice is blind, when in truth justice is peeking from under the blindfold, scanning for whichever billionaire stands nearest. Enough. Clarence Thomas and his master Harlon Crowe must be called out for what they are, a living symbol of how America's justice has been hijacked by money. And when the people of the world understand this truth, they will stop bowing to America's lectures. They will no longer fear its accusations. They will rise and declare, "You are no better, you are worse." Because here in Africa, when corruption exists, at least we admit it must be fought. We call it what it is, a disease that destroys nations. Even if the fight is long, even if the struggle is hard, we do not dare to disguise corruption as something noble. But in America, they dress it up as friendship. They mask it as hospitality. They call it generosity, as though a billionaire funding your vacations were the same as a neighbor sharing bread. They defend it with arrogance, as if the world were too blind to see through the disguise. That is not just corruption. That is corruption with pride. Corruption that does not even blush. Corruption that dares you to challenge it. And let me warn you, corruption with pride is more dangerous than corruption in shame. A man who hides his corruption at least knows it is wrong. But a man who flaunts it, who renames it as kindness, who defends it as normal, such a man has murdered his conscience. And when conscience is dead, there is no limit to the evil he can justify. That is why Clarence Thomas and his defenders are so dangerous, not just because of what they do, but because they believe it is acceptable. They want to convince the world it is normal, that it is not corruption at all. This is the height of hypocrisy. To commit corruption is one thing, but to wear it like a crown, to protect it with arrogance, to use it as a weapon to lecture others, that is the corruption of an empire in decline. And I say to you, when corruption is no longer hidden, but celebrated, it is not just the man who is rotten. It is the entire system that is dying. I expose this today not out of pleasure in pointing fingers, but because truth demands it. Justice demands it. The people demand it. And if America's highest court can be bought with yachts and mansions, then the world must know their justice is a lie. And every lie, no matter how polished, will one day crumble under the weight of truth.